Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, December 18 at 5 p.m. This is a meeting of the Oregon Village Board. I would like to call the meeting to order and request roll call, please.
Grenier,
Here.
Carpenter, here. Staton,
Here.
Bollig,
Here.
Brettauer,
Here.
Jacobson, here. Boudreaux,
Here.
Thank you. We're all present and accounted for. The first thing is item 3, public appearance. Item A, discussion and possible action regarding Oregon Community Resource Networks and Oregon Area Food Pantries request for additional funding to cover permit fees and impact fees, the amount of $10,255 for the new food pantry building. There's some background information. First, the village's unassigned fund balance for the general fund was $1,626,550, or 27% of the total general fund expenditures at the end of 2016. There's a projected unaudited, unassigned fund balance of approximately $80,000 at the end of 2017. And 2, the village paid safe-built $1,521 for the 2028 total building permit fee paid by the food pantry. The remaining payment from the food pantry was for impact and connection fees. So,
Steve,
Randy?
it's all right. I'm going to go into the gallery.
Good. Yeah, good idea. Thanks. Randy, you wanted to represent this, is that right? Or wrong?
I'm representing OCRN.
Okay. I think you're coming to the mic then.
I got your back, Randy.
So obviously sorry. I mean, I think we're still waiting for the final, obviously the bills to come in, but what we're anticipating is that we're going to come in we're going to be at a zero balance.
Do you mean you have no money in the bank then?
After all the bills are paid from the whole building, we anticipate that we're going to be down pretty close to zero. So everything that we raised and accounted for and hope to get will be used to pay for the building, and it'll all be used up.
Okay. Other questions? Sure.
Yeah, Randy, I spoke to Randy about this on Friday, and first of all, congratulations and thanks for coming on board to do fundraising for this group. You're
welcome.
Another hat you're going to wear for a while, and they were wise to do that because you always do a good job with the fundraising. But so you spent the $10,000 the village gave you earlier, or the organization did.
And Jeff, I think you need, because you were president then, I'm sort of, I mean, we will spend everything.
Mm-hmm. So the previous.
Yeah, so what's happened is all the money that was given to us in cash and all the money that was given to us in kind is being used for the building or for the 5-year endowment that we committed to the food pantry to help them take on this new responsibility of managing the building. So some of the question marks right now they're waiting for are the final bills that will give us the exact total of the in-kind from all of the different subs that worked on this project to include the general contractor for the project. And the best we can project right now, we had counted on the $10,000 from the village as being part of that number. If the village decides not to award OCRN the $10,000, and there's been no commitment, but if that were the case, then we would have to go back to the drawing board and see where we can get that money from internally. Because as of right now, it's been committed. And that gets us to a zero balance when all the bills are paid.
But fundraising would help with that, correct?
This $10,000 award from the village would be critical to us getting to a zero balance. If we didn't get it, we would be in a position of having to go back to subs and trying to find in-kind or something like that to pay the bill. We would do it. We'd figure it out. Or it might be that the food pantry wouldn't get the full amount that we had committed over 5 years, which was $12,000 a year roughly.
Okay.
Somehow, some way, we'd have to find the money.
So the fundraising really hasn't started yet, Randy, is that
Well,
correct?
for what?
For the food pantry, the fundraising is done.
Been over.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. We're on to the youth center now.
Okay, so what is this for?
So
This
when
is
we
food
originally
pantry.
came to the village for the permits and the fees to build the building, the village charged the OCRN $10,000-ish for the permits and the fees that were required for us to be able to construct the building.
Okay,
We had asked the village at that time if they'd be willing to waive those fees for us because it was an extra expense.
I remember that.
And at
Yeah.
that time, the village wasn't quite sure that they were gonna have the money
Mm-hmm.
in unallocated funds to be able to do that, and so they asked if they could defer that decision to a future date. Well, that future date was actually probably a few weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
but here we are tonight to have the rest of that conversation and see if at this point, the board feels comfortable that there's
Okay.
enough unallocated funds that they can pay for those permit fees. And maybe Jeff Rao can help me with, and I know it was in the board packet too, I just don't recall the detail. It's not just the permit.
Mm-hmm.
Right, well, it's like a standard building permit, you know, we have obviously all the building permits, electricals, all that type of things. And the stuff that is kind of, part of this is what I call true building permit related and inspection for Safe Built and our building inspection company. But then we also have the other side of the list, which are your impact fees, the fire impact fee and the public works impact fees. And those are impact fees that have already been determined based on commercial or residential use that you pay when you're either connecting to the system, either the water or the sewer system. And then you have the sewer connection fee of $2,500 and the water impact of $1,800, which is pretty normal for this would be a residential connection because it's a very small use. So that's really where the fees are.
Okay, and again, these fees are used for future expansion of the system, or are they used for maintenance also?
Impact fees, well, impact fees are primarily used for when you have to build like new towers and everything like that. You'll project that you are putting a tower in or you have to put a tower in and then you're charging those people who join the system basically to share the cost in that tower or something, that improvement.
And if we don't have those fees, what do we do, borrow the money?
We borrow the money usually.
Okay.
Anyways, they're fees that help offset, helped offset those capital expenditures.
And what about the permits? Those are you budgeting for those permit fees in any way?
We do. We budget every year. We anticipate, because if this were just, I mean, when we had a full-time building inspector, you know, that was a staff position, salary staff position with benefits, and obviously we recoup that salary and stuff based off of the permit fees and the building permit fees. Now we have a service, and that service, we actually pay them 75% of the fees, and we in turn receive 25% of the fee, the remaining 25% of the fee back. And that company is called Safe Built, and they've been with us for, almost 3 years. And we've been happy with them. They've been doing a nice job, but that helps cover their costs of staff and everything to process the permits and complete the inspections, which, you know, they came out and did all the inspections and everything to make sure things were being built to code.
All right, so we're looking at $10,255 of permits and basically impact fees. So does Mike or Lisa, does this create a budgetary hardship if we do this in any way?
So as I was just asking Lisa, you know, we took the original $10,000 contribution out of contingency,
Yep.
but we think that there was 20 we budgeted in 17. We think the other 10 is probably gone for a number of reasons. So this would be coming out of, in a sense, it'd be coming out of the projected fund balance for 2017. That's why I tried to put on the agenda, you know, what that may be, you know, close to $80,000. So the money would be coming out of the projected fund balance for 17.
So we're already going to be tapping 17's fund balance budget.
Well, so rather than, so, you know, at the end of the year, the you know, the budget ends, the audit would happen, and then Lisa and I will come back and say to the board, we have $75,000, $80,000 of unassigned money. What do you want to do with it? Well, you know, a lot of times we move it into street improvements or equipment. One of the things we were just talking today is we're probably going to ask the board to take a 2 or 3 year approach to try to get the fund balance up to 30%. And that would, for example, if we wanted to get up to 30%, we'd have to add about $91,000 to it this year. I'm not saying we should do that. I think we should do it over a couple of years or 3 years.
Right.
So it isn't, The reason why we waited, and Jeff's right, is because we purposely waited to this meeting, because we wanted to wait as long as we could. We wanted to get as many 17 expenses in to see how the budget was coming, and this is Lisa's best projected number of $80,000.
I think I made the motion back last summer or whenever.
In August,
we
I
did
think.
this,
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, just for that reason. Didn't want to give the money and then find ourselves in a,
Well,
but
I don't want
budgetary
to
line.
pick on Matt, but we are spending legal fees this year. Not just for Matt, but for prosecution, so
I mean,
that's.
this isn't pro bono?
And so, that's why the contingency's gone, and it would be taken out of the projected fund balance.
Okay.
But the fund balance is at 27%, so we're still
Yes,
within the
we're not
ordinance of
touching that. We're
25 to
not-
35%.
I'm talking about the projected
Right,
80,
yeah.
we're not
Yeah, I just
touching the
wanted to
1 point, yep,
Clarify that for people that might be watching.
So-
Our fund balance meets the requirements of the ordinance
yes,
right
it
now.
does.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So if we hadn't had this request, what we'll be doing, we've got right now, staff has used wise budgeting to come in under budget. And we got about, if I understand this right, it's about $80,000 under budget
Right.
for the year.
A lot of that's probably from vacancies.
Right.
staff
Personnel.
Uh-huh.
vacancies.
Well, you didn't fill positions right away.
Right, we've
Right.
had one vacant since
Mhm.
September, and the other one's been vacant since June.
So if we didn't have this request, we would put that money into fund balance, correct?
Well, again,
would you spend
I think we would wait till the audit's done, which would be April, May. We'd come back and say, well, it's now, the unassigned fund balance is actually 85,000. It's a little bit higher, or maybe it's 75,000. So then we would say to the board, we would say, well, we think we should move some of the money, some of the cash into 414 to pay for some of the small equipment that Jeff and the chief, they want to buy next year, rather than borrowing for that. And then we may make an attempt to start adding money into the fund balance to get up to 30%. I mean, we probably have one other fund we may put some money in, but depends how much money is left, and, that discussion will be with the board sometime in the springtime after the audit's done.
Yeah, every April, Lisa brings a motion to us to move money around where we need to balance things off, right? And that's what
Okay.
that would do.
Yep.
So this just means we'd have 10,000 less to do that.
Yep,
with.
exactly.
Okay, so, thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
I understand what you're telling me, and, well, if we do these fees, if we forgive these fees, that will basically reduce the amount we put into fund balance at some point possibly.
And into the other funds that we may move the money around into.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, again, when do you're almost at zero money right now, is that what I'm hearing?
In terms of what's been committed, and both ways, right? In terms of the in-kind contributions of subs and contractors, in terms of the cash that we've raised, and in terms of what we're projecting to be spending with the final bill,
Mm-hmm.
including this $10,000, we're gonna come in right around zero. If we came in, for whatever reason, $1,000 higher than zero, we would donate that money to the food pantry and we'd close the account. We wouldn't close the account because we've got money coming in over the next 5 years from donors, but we wouldn't be making any more contributions OCRN wise. If for some reason we come in under, then we have to go back to the contractors and the subs and the food pantry itself and see how we can make that difference up. So the $10,000 contribution today gets us close to zero, if not at zero. If the village decides not to donate the $10,000 to pay for the permitting and the impact fees, then we've got a $10,000 gap we have to try to cover.
And
we'll figure it out.
how much of a hardship is that?
Well, I guess it's a hardship to the extent that we have to fundraise $10,000 one way or the other to cover it. But in terms of how much of a hardship, like Mr. Yuck sticker to smiley face, probably like, squiggle line mouth, cross eyes, I don't know, 4, 3.
Yeah.
Could we repeat that for the minutes?
Don't do that when you're at the table, okay?
Yeah.
Mr. Yuck sticker to smiley face?
It'll gather you down, Joe.
Other questions, Doug, I think you have one.
Well, I'd just like to say that I think the food pantry provides an important public service at relatively low cost. And by supporting the pantry, we're supporting ourselves by reducing the need for ongoing financial support. So I would be in favor of a motion to allocate that money to the OCRN.
If you want to make that a motion?
I would make that a motion,
Okay.
yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion, and I'd also like to add that, I don't know if this has been mentioned before, but I do want to note for the record that we did give another $10,000 donation, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, we are donating, if this passes, we'll be donating $20,255 to the food pantry.
And I think we covered Slavny's time as well. on it.
Okay.
I think so, Jeff, yeah.
Yeah.
So which is maybe $1,000 or something like that.
I mean, I think it's a good cause. I want to support it. I'm a little worried about fund balance, and I would also encourage OCRN in the future, if you're going to be asking us to waive fees, to perhaps ask us to waive fees first, and then ask us for a donation second.
Fair enough.
Yeah, actually, I'd ask to do it all at one time.
Okay.
It's
Or
really
that.
hard after the fact to, I mean, if we don't do this, we're the Grinch from Christmas, right?
Oh, no.
No, but that's what it will look like in the public, I think. And I support this, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. You know, one reservation I have, and I did with the 10,000 too, is that this is not a village entity. It's an area, public service entity, so we're using taxpayer money from the village for the whole area, which is a little unusual, so, but this is an unusual circumstance too, so I'm okay with this, but I think we have to look ahead also to the youth center and what happens there. And, I mean, where I would sit on that right now, I think our contribution will be about $500,000, and that will be in the form of having to build a new public works building. So that's going to be money we don't anticipate borrowing, and, I mean, you know how tough we are in our capital improvement plan right now, so and I don't want to throw cold water on that right away, but I just think thinking ahead, please consider that too.
Yeah.
That's how that all works. Other comments?
No, I'm just going to say, I support the food pantry also, and I wasn't trying to cast a negative light on these
Yeah, no, I
efforts
didn't hear that.
whatsoever. It's just that we budget and we spend very cautiously and very frugally, and I just didn't want to, I want to make sure this is going to be spent prudently, so.
It's okay to ask hard questions.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That clarifies things, so. Are there any other comments or questions? So we have the motion and second to approve the request from the Oregon Community Resource Network for $10,255 for permits and fees. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you.
You're all set. Keep up the good work over there. People at church enjoy seeing it. Okay, item 4 is village attorney and village administrator report. The first is from the December 7th Planning Commission meeting, which is trustee Carpenter. So Jeannie, you're on.
Sure, so item A is discussion and possible action regarding approving ordinance number 17-18 to amend sections of chapter 17, article 8 relating to signs, and to create section 17-524 relating to the neighborhood identification sign overlay zoning district of the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances. So to get this on the table, I'm going to make a motion that by a 2/3 vote of the board, we suspend the rules and have the first and second readings at tonight's meeting.
So moved.
We just need a
Or,
second.
second, sorry.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, what is this doing?
Oh, well, can we get the first one on the floor first so we can discuss it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
What this motion does, Jerry, it means that we can approve the whole agenda item
Right,
tonight.
right, I'm just,
Yeah,
And then I'll explain it at the
yeah.
second
If we
motion.
don't approve this, then we'd have to wait till next meeting. to
am I
approve,
getting
so,
too far ahead?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
maybe. So our motion is to suspend the rules and have the first and second reading at tonight's meeting on this item. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So the next
Okay, so then I'll make this next motion so we can get it up for discussion on here. So then I would make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 17-18.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, so in your packet, there is a really nice memo from Mike Slavny with 6 items that this amendment does to the sign code. So here are the highlights, and all of these amendments have come up over the last year, and Mike have been sort of putting them on a to-do list, and so we try to do them all at once. And so these are things that we did not anticipate when the planning commission and the board put together the sign ordinance. So the first one is, we're going to amend it to permit the mesh construction fencing containing text and or images only during the active development of a site. And this came about at the Jefferson Crossing project, where actually they put up some really nice signs on the chain link fence, kind of hiding or shading the construction. But those banners had the name of the property on it and the phone number. And under the current ordinance, those were not allowed, but we thought they actually didn't, they probably served a good purpose. So that's number one. The second one is to add a neighborhood identification sign overlay zoning district, and that came about because Randy would like to put up a very nice sign that's been approved with the South Main Historic District. We are amending to allow for an additional on-building sign per public entrance on walls that do not face a residential zoning district. This came about because we realized when a new hotel would be built in the village along Highway 14, that they wouldn't actually be able to put the signs they needed to on top to perhaps advertise it to people driving on Highway 14. Yes. So you see that there's like specific things that have driven each one of these. And then changes to under 4A and B, we're prohibiting banners and residential lots. Sign heights have been increased. Some more technical, redundant use of the word plat. Oh, and then 6 is my favorite. This prohibits yard signs from being combined and arranged to form a mosaic pattern, which is essentially one larger saying made up of smaller signs, and we saw that during the last election cycle, which I have to commend that person for their creativity in working around our sign ordinance. But they can't do it again. Yeah. So those are the
Now
6
it's both,
changes.
yeah.
Yeah. And the planning commission thought these are all warranted, so it's before you tonight for your consideration.
Okay. Thanks, Jeannie. Questions or comments?
No, that's all even clear to me. No.
Okay, so we have a motion second to approve ordinance number 17-18. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4B, discussion of possible action, the development agreement for the Sleep Inn Hotel. There's a note that Adam Coyle, who is with us tonight, the hotel developer, is assuming a 60% room occupancy in 2019 and 65% for years 2020 through 2028. Adam acknowledges this is less than the current 70% rate for Dane County. The recommended motion is to approve the development agreement for the Sleep Inn Hotel.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Also, thank you for addressing our sign issue. Appreciate that. I don't know, do you want me to comment on the concern of occupancy and the difference in our numbers?
Sure, go ahead.
It's pretty simple. If you look at Dane County, Madison's the big driver of the hotel use in Dane County. And if we look at some of the other hotels that we have numbers on, mostly we're looking at Fitchburg and Verona, trying to pull from Epic, of course, when they have their busy nights. And then Fitchburg is just kind of a secondary market to Madison, where we're kind of the tertiary market to Madison. So if we look at those numbers, I have real clear numbers on hotels in Verona, and there are no hotels in Verona doing 70% at this point in time. They are doing, in the quote here is, mid to high 60s in Verona right now. So that's what they're able to do this last year. And that's the 2 established hotels in Verona. In Fitchburg, if you look at the numbers, Fitchburg's numbers slip a little bit. The best way I can get Fitchburg's numbers is by having an accountant that actually does the taxes for one of the operators in Fitchburg. He wouldn't tell me if it's the single hotel or the 2 on Hatchery Hill. But if you pull out from the numbers and from the city of Fitchburg, they had a room tax in 2016 of $341,000, and their rate was 6%, their room tax. So they had 273 rooms. If I guess a nightly rate there, which I guess 90, 95, and 100, that shows you occupancy rates of 63.4, 60.1, and 57.1 if they're getting $100 a night. I believe that some of these numbers we see from the market studies are possibly optimistic. Those are the quotes they're getting from the hotel. But if you were to call some of these hotels and say, well, I want to stay there for 4 or 5 days, you generally see discounted rates up to 25%. So we just tried to factor that in our numbers. We did not consider Stoughton. We don't feel that Stoughton is going to have a big effect on us, even though they did build, or are building the new hotel out there. And there are a few new hotels as well. Fitchburg, of course, added another one. They're talking about putting another one in downtown, but, you know, we feel that with our setup here, we're going to do, you know, the numbers we projected. And we also feel that we can get about 70 nights where we can pull people out of Madison and get them down to Oregon by providing a shuttle service. And that's by attaching to the Clarion and trying to pull when they fill up in the events there. And those are factored in our guess as well. As far as 10 years and changing it, that's probably just coming from me and my personality that I don't believe a person can project out 10 years incredibly accurately. So we did raise the rates every year. But as far as just, saying that, it doesn't, you can't predict when somebody builds another hotel. And so if they do build another one at 14, well, that'd be a little kick to us, but, hopefully we can outsmart them some way or another. So that's where we come with the numbers. The big driver there, in a simple way of looking at it, is that Madison is running over 70%. And the numbers I have from that hotel in Madison is what's this, low, what does it say? It just simply says mid-70s.
Okay. Are there questions for Adam? Or questions on the development agreement, or any comments from staff?
I just wanted to mention that when we were in closed session, the board was debating about because it's a pay-as-you-go, how much money we would return every year, the increment back to Adam. And we ran a number of scenarios, and because there isn't that much life left in the TIF, the agreement that Adam has in front of him and Matt prepared is 100% going back to Adam. We just thought, even us by keeping even $10,000, it was going to be really close to Adam would not get all his money back.
Okay.
If the economy dips a little bit, and if the TIF was brand new like TIF 5, we probably would have done that, but we didn't think it was fair to Adam to put him through that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mike, we extend that conversation a little bit. The point I want to stress is that the residents or the taxpayers are going to be paying little or nothing
It's
on this.
right when Adam provides his taxes, which become increment
Right.
part of it, and then it's returned to him plus interest.
Right, until the obligation is covered.
Correct.
So,
Or until the TIF expires.
expires.
Yeah, which is 2035.
And another scenario could have been that we would have had to go out and borrow
Right.
all the money,
Right.
and we would have had to fund
Right.
the interest and principal payments out of that.
I think that we got the strong message from the board in closed session. You want the hotel to be successful, so
Yep.
that's why we're proposing this 100% return to Adam.
Good.
Is the interest that we pay back 5% of the tax increment that's generated that year? Or is it 5% of the total tax increment?
The way this is structured is, it's an $800,000 principal amount on the municipal revenue obligation. So it would be 5% on that unpaid principal. So,
Be 700 and...
so it's basically like in a way, it's like a loan that we're paying principal and interest on. We're paying $800,000 in
Yeah.
principal with interest at 5%.
Right,
So as we pay-
amortized over 20 years or...
Well, we
Or
didn't,
just
we
straight?
chose, we didn't even amortize it, because what we're doing is, what we're saying is every year, we're gonna pay 100% of the increment that this generates back to the developer. It'll be applied first to accrued interest, and then to reduce principal. So if the value and the increment goes up faster than projected, we'll pay it down faster. If, in fact, the project doesn't generate enough revenue over the life of the TIF to fully pay the principal and interest on that, the district will terminate, and Adam just won't be paid in full.
So it'll be 5% on the outstanding principal.
Correct.
Every year.
Every year, right? So every year, Lisa's gonna have to calculate, how much money do we have available? What's the accrued interest? Apply it first to that. Apply it second to pay down as much principal as possible. We'd like to pay it off as quickly as possible. Our projection shows that if in fact the values come in exactly as projected. There will be a surplus. We will pay it down, we'll pay it all, we'll pay off the principal before the district expires,
By 2 years.
2 years early. And we'll have an extra, I can't remember, like $70,000 or something like that.
Yep.
In increment that the village can use to help cover the public improvement costs down there.
Okay.
But to Jerry's point, yeah, we don't have to borrow, we're not borrowing any money.
No.
We're not assuming any risk. The only way the developer gets paid is by building the hotel and generating enough increment to pay that back. And the projections here are such that it, you know, it's close. You'll get paid back if the
We'll get it
numbers
done.
come in as projected, and if not, you know, you might not. But we're hoping for you.
No, my point was
we'll get it
in
done.
all possible scenarios, this is the best way for the residents to have a hotel in the village of Oregon.
And that's why we decided to give them, or the board decided hopefully that 100% back to make it as successful as possible. We want Adam sweating that at the end.
Well, thank you.
Much appreciation, Adam.
Well, thank you as well.
Other questions or comments over here?
Steve, I just want to make one
Yeah.
comment if I could, that I do want to really recognize Judy, Chamber Director. This hotel, besides Adam coming up, you know, and stepping up and doing the project, Judy did all the heavy lifting on this project. I think we went through 3 other developers since she's been the director, never gave up hope, was always, I'm gonna find the next person, and thank God Adam came forward.
If I can second that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Thank
do
you,
want to
Judy.
publicly thank Judy and the chamber. So, thank you.
And as long as we're doing that, I would like it very much if we could just notify the public where it's going to be located, because I had a comment over the weekend. A lot of people think it's going to be at the site of the old hotel.
Right.
Judy's out there nodding her head. So, Adam, would you want to tell everybody where it's going to be?
Yeah, on the corner of Park Street and Rosewood,
Which is across the street from...
across the street from the old restaurant, the old waterfall, and the
Yes.
old
Thank
motel,
you.
yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure Bill is watching this at home, live from the Observer, so I'll ask that he
Oh.
make note of that in the paper too. I hope you're hearing me, Bill.
Nice to raise there.
He's laughing at Steve,
Yeah.
right?
I helped him out a little bit tonight. Other questions or comments? And again, Judy, I appreciate the comments Mike made. I'd second those on behalf of the board. We know you put a lot of time in, and we appreciate that.
Nice,
Been great.
person to have here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a good working agreement, and that's why things get done, and that's how things happen in this village, and we appreciate that. Okay, so we have the motion second to approve the development agreement for the Sleep Inn Hotel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
There you
Look
go.
forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Adam.
Adam.
Okay, item C, discussion possible action regarding village administrator's request to send fiduciary's proposed townhomes project back to planning commission for further consideration. Minutes from the October 5th planning commission meeting are in our packets, so.
So what this is about is, if you look at the layout, I'm just gonna hold this up here.
Yeah, we have a map in the packet.
Yeah. So, I'm just, if you can see, so what this, all this is already built. This is Bergamot Boulevard. What fiduciary is proposing to build is on this vacant lot here, and then these 2 vacant lots along CC. This was originally, so the Plan Commission, when Craig Radis, they didn't really have a problem. The neighbors will have a lot of notifications. This is going to require a comp plan amendment and a zoning change, so there'll be, you know, numerous public hearings on this. What the Plan Commission wasn't excited about was changing these 2 lots along CC, taking that from commercial to multifamily. And I think I can speak for Jeff that we feel, even though Mike Stein disagrees with us, but that's fine. We feel that it makes sense to continue the residential development up to CC. Fiduciary is proposing to put in a berm along CC, and I think just be a nice conclusion to the development in that area. Craig has gotten some feedback from the residents in Bergamot that they would prefer to see the multifamily than some type of commercial development. Financially, I had Lisa look up for me that, I mean, right now, those 4 units are being assessed at $452,000. You put up a daycare center or even a gas station, I don't think you're gonna get that type of value. And you're talking about, we're talking about 12 buildings that would go up. And so, reason why, and I talked to the Plan Commission, this is okay to talk to the board about, because the commission was not, generally speaking, Jeannie was not in support of this, along CC. And I had verified this with Matt, that if fiduciary wanted to go through and do this, then they have to do the comp plan amendment. If the Plan Commission recommends against it through the comp plan process, the board cannot overrule them. Correct? Correct. So, is the board interested in me trying to work with the Plan Commission to see if there's a kind of compromise that we could work out between the village and fiduciary? I think Craig is going to go ahead, I think, with the senior housing lot, even though it's going to be lengthy to go through the comp plan and maybe have to come back and do it again. But I told him I'd give it a shot and see if the board's interested in. So in some respects, we'd have to convince the Plan Commission to do it, because right now there's not even close to, I think there's like one member, I think Patrick Molzon, the only one that supported it at the conceptual discussion.
I mean, I will say there were three people who were very vocally against it, and there were several people who did not talk. I would be in favor of building these, and I asked the members, I said, why are you so against it? And they said that they wanted to see commercial there, and I said, give me an example, and they said a daycare center.
Yeah.
But you look at the map, and, right next door is more residential. That one parcel, that's not in the village, right? That's still in the town.
It's Greg Epps' property.
So to me, like, if let's say the parcels to both directions were commercial, I could see that, but that's not the case. So I don't know. I would like to be optimistic that the Planning Commission could be swayed. I remember Greg Schnelly saying that he would be open to relooking at it in another year, to give another year to see if we can get some commercial development in there. But I don't know if they would turn it down or vote against it. I don't know. I think it would be a close vote.
Yeah, that's true, but there's a couple of the members that really didn't speak, so.
Right, so
But
we don't
I
know.
agree, there's three that are very against it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Can I ask a question? Okay, the housing for the seniors, is that,
It wouldn't be senior housing, Darlene, on the plan, it's called for senior housing.
Yeah.
It would change to these four unit buildings.
It'd be just like what's there right now.
Right, and that's what I said at the Plan Commission meeting, that when Mark Beal was here, Mark and I always worried that was for senior housing, and fiduciary would come, or somebody would come and want to build a 3 or 4 story building in that neighborhood, and I don't think those neighborhoods would like that. So I really see this as a positive for people that live along Prairie Grass Road to the east, this part of the development. And I understand the Plan Commission, we had numerous meetings about this, and fiduciary wanted to do apartments in here, and I think this ended up being a really good compromise for the village and the neighborhood. I know Mike Slavny said this is like one of the nicest multifamily developments he's seen, that he's been around. And we would continue that with a really nice landscaping berm, and so. But I don't want to go up against the Plan Commission. And it doesn't really matter if there's 4 votes, it won't happen anyways. If they vote against the comp plan amendment, the board cannot overrule them, so it doesn't really matter. But I didn't want to go back and try to discuss or even debate this with them if there wasn't support at the board level for it.
So Mike's asking what we support.
And if you want to think about it, I mean, if you want to think about it, I can bring it back to the next meeting if you want to, now that you kind of a little bit more background on what I'm asking for.
If this change are to be made, does it preclude any commercial development on the north side of Jefferson, CC?
No.
So that could still take place?
Oh, absolutely.
There's
Yep.
quite a bit over there,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think that's what Patrick Molzon, who's on the Plan Commission, said. There's vacant property across the street, and then he thinks that as the village goes to the west, could be a potential for other commercial property. And when this was all planned, this was supposed to be, neighborhoods that have commercial property, and I do believe there is going to be a gas station going in, but it's not going to be on these lots.
One other thing that I tried to bring up was that these commercial lots have been for sale for 10 years.
More than that.
2003.
And there's been no bites. So I asked the planning commission, I'm like, why do you think anything's gonna change in the next year? I don't know. I really like the look of
I know.
those buildings.
I know.
There's a high demand for that kind of housing in the village. I thought it was a no-brainer. I was in the minority,
I agree.
so
I agree.
here it is before you to
I
see
think
if
Jeff and I
anyone
were
else
surprised.
thinks the way that I think.
Yeah, excuse me. I think Jeff and I were surprised that that was the reaction that, you know,
Yeah.
because this has been so, I mean, they could really get these buildings up and the people were moving
Yeah.
into them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I,
So,
go ahead,
ahead.
John.
oh, I was just gonna ask, because I agree, we do, like, as a village, we need more rental properties for people as they're transitioning, as they're building for other reasons. So I like that idea, but I also like the idea of seeing what we can do to encourage some businesses to come to that area. So I guess my question is, what are we doing, or what have we been doing if we're already doing stuff to try and attract some businesses to come there?
So, last couple of years, we've had, obviously, Beehives, which is right across the
Right.
street.
Right. Yep.
Omni Technology is coming in. When we meet with people, we point them towards this direction, which is basically Oregon Park's neighborhood. And I've pointed people, when the sanctuary project fell through, I tried to get that developer to look at this property, and he wasn't interested. So we try to push people out to the vacant property, but you can't force people to obviously do it.
Well, right.
Yeah.
So other than like pointing to the area, that's the only real incentive we have to encourage them?
Well,
Or,
oh, yeah, that's what Judy and I do, and Jeff does, yep. Mhm.
What have we got to lose by us? I kind of embrace what Mike and Jeannie are indicating here. What have we got to lose by asking planning to re-examine this?
Nothing, just that I want to make sure that, you know, if planning changes their mind and it got up to the board level, that then you didn't vote it down.
Oh, no, no, okay.
That
After
would
all-
be kind of embarrassing.
After all that work.
Okay,
I might not live that down, Jerry.
I'll go on record as saying I would support this, okay?
Well, I think we sent it back, we should get some reasons why we sent it back, too.
Yeah.
I'd just say, look at this again,
That's
because
a
we
good-
want you to.
that's a
We
great
should say
idea.
why.
Because the demand is there, huh? You know, I think that's.
No, I don't think we should put commercial in there where there's other apartments. I think they should just continue to build there where that is. It's a nice plan.
Yeah, so one reason is what's been built already has been very successful. Let's continue with that.
Right.
It's been good on those lots.
That would be on.
Another is there's a lot of commercial space across the road. The other is that it's been on the market since 2003, and we found through the chamber in the village that people are not interested in going to the west side right now for the most part. A couple have. They'll start it, but there's a lot of room on the north side of CC for that to happen. Were there other reasons?
And I would say it continues the residential of that along CC.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So with that, Jeff and I will take it back to planning with Jeannie's help.
And we need a motion.
That will be fun.
It'd be nice to send it back.
If you wanted to do it with a motion,
Yeah.
that would, sure.
Yeah, so we have a motion on that, please?
I'll let Jeannie do that.
You want me, okay, so I would make a motion that we send fiduciary's proposed townhomes project back to the planning commission for further consideration.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that'll go back as a 7-0 with those
I'm gonna
reasons.
abstain because I live there.
Okay.
6. Thank you for that. We'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted.
Okay, so item D, discussion possible action, 2017 Wisconsin Act 67 makes major changes to Wisconsin land use law. The recommended motion is to refer the village attorney's memorandum to the planning commission.
Do you want me to just hit the highlights?
Yeah, let's do it, then we'll do a motion after that. Thanks, Bill.
The thing that concerns me most about this particular piece of legislation in terms of having a kind of an immediate impact on the village is the changes it makes to the law relating to conditional use permits. As many of you know, in our zoning code, we have two different kinds of uses. Permitted uses, those are things that are just allowable as of right. Conditional uses are uses that the code says are allowable, but only if the applicant can demonstrate to the Plan Commission and the Village Board that that use is appropriate, won't cause any adverse impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, things of that nature. And this has been the framework in Wisconsin for a long time. And historically, the way the law has worked, the burden of proof has been on the applicant to come to the Plan Commission in the village and show that their project meets our standard, which is a kind of generalized standard about health, safety, and general welfare impacts on the community. This new legislation makes some big changes to the law. One is that generalized standards like that are unlikely to be allowable anymore. The legislation has been drafted to say that the standards in our ordinance governing conditional uses will need to be, quote, reasonable, and no one knows what that means yet, and it also, quote, to the extent practicable, measurable. And I think the intent behind the legislation is to compel municipalities to provide kind of clear, measurable, objective standards that can be, that an applicant can show they would meet, rather than what we have under current law, which is to give the community the opportunity to consider a broad range of impacts based on generalized standards and decide whether they think the use would be harmonious with the neighborhood or not. So that's a major change, and the standard that we have in our ordinance right now may not be allowable under the law as it's been changed. That's kind of the big change. There are some other changes that we'll have to prepare for if we're going to continue to use conditional uses the way we have in the past. Just give you two examples. Many of you have been to hearings, public hearings, where people from the community have come in and testified about their concerns about a proposed land use. That kind of testimony is now going to be subject to legal challenge. The way the statute is written, that the kind of evidence that can be considered in making a decision on a conditional use permit can no longer be based on, I think the language is, can't be based on personal preferences or speculation. And so someone comes in and says, I'm worried about how this is going to affect our neighborhood. I have concerns about this, that, or the other thing. That kind of testimony is going to be difficult to sustain a decision under this new legislation. There are some other things about it that are things that we'll have to deal with if we're going to continue to use conditional uses as we have in the past. So there's a couple of different ways the village might approach responding to this. One would be to say, well, we'll keep our existing framework of permitted uses and conditional uses, but we'll modify our standards in the ordinance so that we think they're more legally defensible, and we'll figure out how to deal with the new evidentiary standard at hearings and educate ourselves about how we're going to go about doing this going forward. Another approach, and actually Mike Slavny and I have been talking about this legislation during the months before it was even adopted.
Yeah.
He said a very similar change in the law happened in Illinois, not as a result of legislation, but as a result of a court decision.
Yep.
And the courts there imposed a similar kind of change on the law. And what he said, one of the responses was that over time communities basically got away from using these conditional uses because they didn't like the position they were put in with this new legal framework of having to approve these conditional uses under these kinds of standards. So basically, things that were allowable as conditional uses in certain zoning districts, they were just pulled out. And then if there were things that the community felt were still maybe important to allow under some conditions, special zoning districts were created for those. So if somebody wanted to do it, they'd have to convince you to change the zoning of property and create a new zoning district where you still have a lot of authority. So those are two possible approaches to dealing with this particular change of the law. There's another change in the law we'll have to check the code on that basically eliminates that. It's a very common tool in zoning codes to say that if you have substandard lots, and it's not unusual for someone to own two adjacent lots that are substandard, both too small, they don't meet our criteria, for example. I think our code, I have to double check this, many codes, and maybe our code contains a provision that says if you own two lots that are next to each other that are each substandard, we get to treat them as a single lot and to require you to comply with our zoning requirements as if it was a single lot. And there was actually a case that went up to this U.S. Supreme Court last year, challenging that kind of a framework in a Wisconsin county, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, that's okay. County, your zoning code can do that. The Wisconsin legislature's response to that U.S. Supreme Court decision was to enact the statute saying, can't do that anymore. So to the extent we do that in our zoning code, we'll have to clean that up. There's another piece of legislation working its way through that's got more goodies like this for essentially kind of the real estate developer and those who are philosophically inclined towards non-regulation in the property arena.
Keep government out of regulating
Yeah,
property.
kind of
yeah.
a libertarian, let people do what they want with their property perspective is, they call it property rights legislation. There's another piece coming through. We'll see what happens with that one. There may be some follow-up or some additional work to do in response to that. So I think, again, if you do nothing, and I wouldn't recommend we do nothing on the conditional use permits, because we're going to have somebody come in and apply for a permit, and we're going to have a problem because we won't have the tools that we need to manage it properly under ordinances. So
I think Mike told us last week or a couple weeks ago, he looked back at, since he's been planner, I think we've approved 90, what do you say, Jeff? 99% of all CUPs, I think, since, I mean, so the board and the planning commissions, we approve them. Yeah.
we typically approve them, and sometimes we attach conditions. I guess the question is whether we want to wait and see what happens before we make any adjustments to our code, or whether you want this to go to the plan commission, they can start talking about how to deal with it.
Well, Mike brought up a little bit at the last meeting, but I'm asking the board to refer your,
To the plan commission.
actually, you're coming to the February 1st plan commission meeting, so I was gonna ask for this to go back, or go to planning for more discussion at the planning level.
Mike, I think part of the discussion too was that a lot of CUPs are approved because they go through a fairly thorough vetting process.
Yep.
Even before they get before the village board,
Yep.
which makes sense. I mean, if we saw something that was totally out of whack, then we'd
Right.
probably say, don't waste the board time.
Yeah.
So,
But I think now, under the new law, it's gonna be like a zoning change, or it's gonna be two weeks of publication.
yeah, class 2 notice.
Yeah, class 2 notice, yeah.
Does this have any implications for the conversation we just had about the use of the property with fiduciary?
Well, it would, to the extent that, right now that land is zoned commercial.
And senior housing,
It's-
institutional.
It's probably actually neighborhood business.
Yeah.
Well,
Neighborhood business.
the front is either commercial or neighborhood business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what you would do is you'd look at your code under those two classifications and take a look at your list of conditional uses, allowed conditional uses, and ask yourself, am I comfortable with that list of conditional uses, knowing that essentially now the burden is on the community to prove that your ordinance is lawful and that there's no way that that proposed conditional use can meet your lawful standards in your ordinance. And I think we're in a difficult position there now, at least because I think our current standard is probably not, it's vulnerable to challenge under this new requirement that the standards have to be reasonable and measurable. We have kind of a generalized public health, safety, and general welfare kind of standard, which is exactly what this legislation was trying to get rid of, that kind of standard. So if you look at your commercial and your neighborhood business districts and you look through and you say, am I okay with all these uses being maybe subject to approval in that environment or not, that'll give you a sense of maybe how much to be concerned about it.
So I'm asking for the board to refer it to planning.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'll just mention the area where you have the really bigger concerns about conditional uses are, I mean, you have some of it, there's a concern in villages to some extent. It's a really big deal out in townships where you have potential for like gravel pits, and frac sand mining, and all kinds of things that get to be really controversial that are currently all structured as conditional uses. That's where all the litigation is coming from. That's where this push for this legislation came from. That's not to say we don't have an issue in the village, because we do. We do have conditional uses. But it's not to the same degree of magnitude as it is in townships where you can see some pretty controversial conditional use applications.
So do we have any further discussion on this, going back to planning? One general comment I'll make, and I've been biting my tongue for a long time on this, but I'm very tired of the legislature and governor taking away local control on things. And they've done over 110 things so far since been in office. And I personally think local municipalities can make the best judgments about what they want in their community. And they have enough trouble running the state from where they are. So that's my comment. Probably should have said it, but that's the way it goes. You can tell them I said that too if you want to. So we have that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're on to item E, F, and G, and there's a note that we should discuss those together. Item E is Village Administration's 10-year staffing plan. Item F is initial discussion regarding the future of Village Hall and adoption of the final civic campus plan in 2018. There's some background information, a board motion from a special April 13, 2015 joint meeting with Library. Carpenter moved, seconded by Grenier, to approve hiring Vanderwall to complete the master civic campus plan. And once that's done, it's completed, notify the consultant that building the library is a priority. Motion carries 7-0. The library thanked the village board. And item G, discussion and possible action on the chamber lease agreement for 2018-2020. Either party may cancel lease at any time upon a 6-month written notice to the other party. So you've got the floor.
Yeah, it's related because it involves possibly adding staff to the village hall. What are we doing with the village hall? And then the 3-year lease with the chamber. And we have a provision in the new chamber lease that we'd have to give the chamber a 6-month notice if we're going to ask them to leave before it expires. So first, the staffing plan. I have attempted to hire a planner at least 4 or 5 other times since I've been here. I came really close one year, and it got bumped out of the budget somewhat at the last moment. I feel we need to hire a planner. I know Jeff supports it 100%. We have a lot going on. Mike Slavin even has said that we're at the point where we should have a planner on staff. This past summer, doing TIF 5, we couldn't have done that without Candy in the front office helping us get through it. I mean, a planner should have been overseeing that. We should have had a planner here to oversee the civic campus plan and space needs study. I can go on. I have a list I can give you, but I mean, I just feel we need one. And if we really do jump 14 and start doing the business park, and then we do possibly another business park in Alpine Dairy, I mean, you're talking about 2 more TIFs. There's just a lot of work. And we need to have, somebody should be here, going back to Jenna's question about, promoting the vacant commercial property, somebody out there doing economic development that, we don't really have time to do. So I'm going to propose, you'll see it in the 2019 budget, a planner for that to start in 19. Then the next item is hiring a park and rec director. You'll be seeing development for JC Park West early 2018. And I know Jeannie's been talking about setting up our own program, rec program, and which we'd have to have a pretty in-depth discussion with the school district, but they've been doing it a long time. But if we go that route and just to oversee the development of JC Park West and controlling that and who gets the fields and everything, including the fields on the west side, at some point we're going to need to have a staff person here just to, for a better term, just to referee the use of the fields. We can't keep doing this just on an informal basis. We've been very, very fortunate that all these parents and organizations have done it over the years. And then in the future, depending what's going on, we either hire a personnel director or assistant finance director, and so that's 2022, 2023. But with that being said, if we would do all that, we'd be looking at adding at least 3 offices in the village hall. And so that would impact the chamber space and what we're doing. And so the second item, before I go, is there any questions about that before I go on to the next item?
I just had one question. I was, when I'm looking at these, do we need to account or support staff for that, having added so many directors? Do we need to, will that impact how much support staff we have as well, or?
Possibly, yeah. I would think at some point we'd have to probably at least add one more support staff, yeah. So I'm saying at least 3 offices, if not, you know, at least another spot for somebody to be working in, yeah.
Other questions?
Okay. So then I put the motion from the 2015 meeting because I know the board had made a motion back then that the library was the priority, and I think now that the board's taken the vote on the $6 million, and the library now has its property where it's going to get built, the new building, I think we should now turn our attention to the village hall. This is another item I have not been very successful in getting previous boards to deal with. I'm glad Jeannie brought that up at the last meeting. I'm thinking what I'd like to do, if this is okay, would be to have Mike Slavny come in early 2018, maybe even with Brian Munson from Vanderwall, and just pick the information out of the civic campus plan, just dealing with the village hall. And just sort of go through the options. You know, Jeff has mentioned a few times that we sort of know what we're going to do with the senior center, and I think that's a good idea that once the library gets built. But so then, what are we doing with this building? Or should we build a new village hall? Should we remodel this? And I like to really go back into the plan and talk to Mike about it, with the board in 2018, and get working on this if we could. We just had another issue last week where we're going to spend $3,000 in our heating system, and we need to get going on something in this building. Yeah.
I agree with that, Mike.
I know you do.
It's time.
Yeah.
And Jeannie made a good point, another point too, that we've talked about how Mike is maybe not brought forward because it's a building he's in, but there's a lot of other staff here too. And they need better working conditions, better place, more up to date, more efficient, and better control for heat, cool, and stuff.
Well, and it ties into the first item in that if we're going to start trying to add people, we really have no space to put them in. I mean,
Yeah.
and I want to be fair to the chamber that we involve the chamber in this discussion, and are we going to try to build a building that includes the chamber, or I mean, I think this will take some time to work through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I'm always trying to give away the building.
So an idea that I had that I floated privately a couple times, and I just want to float publicly,
Yep.
is while we have this library project in front of us and we're trying to think about this 25-year interior with a 75-year exterior, we recognize that the library would not fill that entire building for the next 25 years. We would build out what they need for the next 25 years. So then if we built a building on that scale, would leave room that wouldn't be needed until 25 years from now, which if we were to cohabitate the village and the library in that same large footprint, we could build out village space for cheaper than we could build new construction, and we would have 20 to 25 years to figure out what to do going forward for the village before the library would need to grow into that space that we built out. So it might be a way for us to accomplish both things at one time.
And I responded to your email, I thank you again for that idea. We've actually talked about that more than a few times internally here, and actually it was, I give Nikki credit, she actually brought it up to me at one of our meetings, and I've been talking to staff about it, and it's an interesting idea because it puts the village hall employees into a brand new building, but I think there's a somewhat of not concern, but just an issue of sort of moving out of the basic part of the downtown, to that block for service reasons, I guess. But also, I think it would end up being, as I mentioned I'm telling you what I told Jeff in my email, a complicated arrangement with the library board, to be mixing these two departments. When we were first looking at this, and we were thinking it would only be in there for maybe 5 or 7 years, it was going to have to be something that we would add to the MOU, because the library board, I guess, wanted to have something in writing that when the village hall would then move out, that they're like, who was going to pay for then the remodeling to make it into a library. And I just saw a lot of pitfalls. That'd be another thing we'd have to try to do before the library gets built. And the library is, you know, Jeff, how many square feet did you think you'd be building a joint library and village?
Well, the library thought they would need a 35,000 square foot footprint, but I don't think they would need to use that immediately. So it might be 20,000 square feet for the library, which would double the space they're in now, and then 15,000 square foot for Village Hall, off the top of my head. The other thought that I had was the library's already said that it's going to be much more expensive operationally to staff a 2-floor library. So if there was a way to put the library on the first floor and have Village Hall on the second floor, they could spread out horizontally instead of vertically and save themselves operationally. I'm just off the top of my head.
No, I appreciate that. We've talked about it. I think that's how we actually ended up making, I think, the really good idea of where the senior center is going. We went through a number of options, and that's another thing that sort of gets complicated. When we're doing all this, we're going to have to accommodate the senior center moving into the Village Hall at some point for about a year and a half. So this gets complicated. I guess I would like to, if it's okay with the board, start talking with the board in 18 with Slavny, you know, schedule a meeting, and like I said, pull those plans out again and maybe go through all these different options, including what Jeff's talking about, and, you know, just make sure that we're planning for the future, because at some point, we have to do something to this building, we really do.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It always was important. It wasn't about whether the Village Hall needed to be dealt with. It was about the order, but
Exactly.
but I do agree that we should start talking about it sooner than later.
So I think we have, obviously, we have the library, you know, location, and I think somewhat resolved. We know where the senior center is going. We need to decide what we're going to do with the Village Hall now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's time.
Okay.
Is that what we're agreeing with? Start looking at Village Hall and how that goes?
I'll try to find, I work around Mike's schedule and try to find a later agenda to have him come and talk to the board.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Which does take us to item G. We need a motion to approve the new chamber lease for 2018 through 2020.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Current rent is 0, right?
Yes.
That goes way up when we get to the hotel.
We're going to double it.
You're out of order. I've been waiting for that. Any discussion on that lease?
I had a question. It looked like, so we're charging $0 for rent in exchange for, I think it was partnership membership?
We don't pay dues.
Right. What all is a partnership membership? I tried to Google it and there was not anything out there. Yeah. Yeah, like what does that mean?
That's a good comeback.
Touche.
So you can finally get that gold-plated toilet I've always wanted.
This was brought up by, I thought somebody was going to ask me this. I was trying to remember which board member. I think this actually goes back to Darrell Klemke's idea. This is a long time ago. That, you know, he felt that the village had space when the police department moved out, that rather than us paying chamber dues, have the chamber move in here, and then the chamber moved out, and the fire department moved in, and the chamber's been here now for quite some time, and I think it's worked out.
So, but what is in the partnership membership? Like, I'm just curious. What was that?
It's intangible.
Do you know what that involves, Judy? You'd have to come to the microphone, please, sorry.
I mean, I'm just,
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
No, it's a good question. What the chamber does, the chamber gets involved and we make sure, like we were hoping Door and Hardware would go in. Well, right now I'm placing all those businesses in other places here in town. So the more businesses the chamber can get open in town, and I can work with Mike to get all these, like the hotel for number one, then we get more taxes too. So my job is, like Jerry said, is intangible, because you really can't put a price on what I do. Because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, I use Mike's time, but still it works. But yeah, we do have certain prices that we do, that we charge for membership dues. But the village is a whole different thing. I mean, we can charge them $1,500 if we wanted to. But for doing that, it's just, it doesn't even compare. So we just work back and forth with
I think
everything.
we could put a dollar figure on it. We could be hiring an economic development consultant.
Well, that's kind of what I was looking
Yeah.
at, is like, it sounds like what you're doing is the
Yeah.
community development
And
director.
in exchange, we get Judy for basically free.
Yeah.
I I think it's a pretty good deal myself.
But there's room tax coming, so.
Yes. Yes, there is.
Hear that, Mr.
I heard it.
Matt?
It's gotta be negotiated, Judy.
We know, and that's why I keep talking nice to Matt,
Yeah.
so.
It's
very complicated under the law.
Yeah, that's another thing the state has done. They've changed the room tax on us.
And Fitchburg just raised theirs up to 7%.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when Adam said that, it made me think, we adopted it when we thought one was coming, and it's at 5. So we may have to look at that.
And he's okay with that,
Yeah.
so,
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about possibly raising it, maybe.
yeah.
I mean,
right.
not starting off, but at some point.
Right, but he's, you know, and I work closely with a lot of businesses, and we try to marry them, and, you know, I got some other deals going that is not, you know, they're just out there, but, you know, once we get those other deals going, I think you guys are going to be very pleased, too, so.
Yeah, the advantage we have with Judy is that there are some people that feel comfortable approaching Judy about a business, and there are some people that feel comfortable approaching me, and then I get Judy involved, so it works well, and we,
Symbiotic.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's worked well.
It is, it works really well, so, you know,
Okay, so we have the chamber lease to approve. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item A is discussion and possible action, cost reimbursement agreement with Forward Development and update regarding Highlands at Netherwood subdivision. Recommend a motion to approve the agreement with Forward Development.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Comments here from staff?
Just briefly, this is exactly what it says, a cost reimbursement agreement, and basically requires the developer to reimburse the village for legal, planning, and other expenses that the village is incurring as we work through the development approval process with the Forward Development Group, and also work through the urban service area amendment process. They have deposited $25,000, which is what we estimate the urban service area amendment process to cost. They also have come current on the fees that they had incurred, or the village had incurred, and deposited an additional $5,000 with the village to allow us to keep moving forward. So that's what this is, that's the purpose of this agreement, is to just make sure the village is reimbursed for the expenses of managing this development project.
Are there
Yeah.
questions?
Yes, again, what is what are they doing for the public?
That's the subdivision that's going next to Oregon Parks neighborhood, next to where Beehives is, there's
Yeah.
the vacant field.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
the west.
West, just out of town on the west.
Yeah, just
It's
for the-
called the Highlands of Netherwood. Yes, Highlands of Netherwood, or at Netherwood.
And what is that?
Pardon?
What is that?
That's the subdivision.
Single-family
Single-family
housing,
housing?
mainly.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Some multifamily,
Some multi.
yeah.
Okay.
It's single family, yeah.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion second to approve the agreement with Forward Development. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item I, discussion possible action, distribution of TIF 2 fund balance to other taxing districts. Recommend a motion to approve distributing 90% of TIF 2's fund balance, share to other taxing districts, with the remaining 10% being distributed in 2018 after the completion of the closing audit.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on this or comments?
Said, we'll be distributing the money before the end of the year, the 90%. And then in January, the 10%. The audit will be completed by the end of January.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Item 5 is five, approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight in the amount of $755,214.48 for approval.
So moved? Or, yeah.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
I just have one, and it's not really about the voucher. It's about the project that it's attached to. The Kellstrom Park project, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
I know this is for engineering. Has anything else been done other than the engineering on that project?
No, what we have right now is, we have a preliminary design on the project, and then it's scheduled, they're preparing a bid package that will include the sidewalk improvements, some minor grading, and the structure which is kind of, I don't want to call it a gazebo because people kind of think of what that looks like, but some sort of shelter with outsides that'll kind of benches below it and everything like that.
So a final layout has been determined then?
It's really sticking with the layout that was prepared earlier and already run through the Board and
Okay.
Plan Commission. So-
Again, this is a small park that the Kellstrom family or
Correct.
Wisco
The Kellstrom
donated.
family dedicated, or gave this land to the village about a year ago, Mike, did you say? It's kind of it's a gateway kind of project
Okay.
into the village and connected to the bike path out there.
Mhm.
So this will be a nice, and they've been an important family and founders of Wisco, I believe, correct?
Yes.
So,
Correct.
you know, and that's right across the
Matt.
street
Thanks,
from
Matt.
from them as well.
Good night.
Yeah, that's probably the bill you see in there is just some of the engineering.
Just
to-
some of the engineering, just wondering what the progress has been on the park itself.
Yeah.
This spring.
Yeah, that-
Spring, early summer.
Right, the amount of the project, you know, including the gazebo and the concrete work, exceeds $25,000.
Okay.
When then we have to go into public bidding laws, and if we're going out for public bid, we have to have a contract documents prepared, so that's kind of the process we're in right now.
And again, just to refresh everyone's memory, that's a small parcel that's, is it Cusick
Braun Road
Braun
and
Road?
Market Street.
and Market Street? And I believe the family donated it to the village.
Correct.
And now it's going to be a memorial to Elvin Kellstrom, so.
Correct, yeah. It'd be a nice little,
It's a nice location, relates to the
Entrance.
bike trail.
absolutely.
Connects that area, nice place to stop and take a break. Other questions on the vouchers? Okay, so we have motion second for vouchers in the amount of $755,214.48. Roll call, please.
Brethauer,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Grenier,
Yes.
Jacobson. Yes. Bollig,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Staton.
Yes, thank you. Item 6 is community input. Anyone wish to address the board tonight? Seeing no one, we'll go to item 7, which is proclamation announcements. Item A, board comments. Anyone?
I believe this is our last meeting of the year, isn't it?
Maybe. Maybe, Jerry.
Is that a definite maybe, Mike?
It is.
Next Monday night, you could.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, see on Christmas, Jerry.
Yeah.
See how dedicated you are.
I was just wondering if we get Christmas off or not.
Yeah, maybe.
How about New Year's? Do we get?
Well, again, maybe.
Yeah. Anything
Yes.
else?
That's all I have.
I would mention that I've had several people, this is a thank you to Arlene and Judy, thank you about the Christmas lights, how nice the community looks, and I think we need to compliment them, their ongoing efforts on that, so that's good. Item B, staff comments.
Leaf collection and brush pickup has ended, so we were able to finish the leaf collection. Weather has been on our favor this year. We had some really nice warming trends, leaves all came down, and the guys worked really hard to get them all picked up. And it also gave us the opportunity to run the brush chipper around the entire village, so that's, I think, great. I don't think we've never, well, the years I've been here, we've always kind of been caught by the snow eventually and had to finish in the spring, so we're very good. And I appreciate the patience of the residents this year. I did not get many complaints this year, and that's usually.
I didn't get one. Not one.
Usually we get quite a few leaf complaints because it just takes time. People were very patient. They were using the website to be able to see the maps that were being done every day. So I really appreciate Candy and Gary preparing those maps and posting them to the website. So, and then next year when we have our new machine,
Yeah.
I think we'll even be smoother yet.
Yeah.
So
Good.
that'll be good.
Tax bills went out.
Yes.
Last week,
Last
right,
week,
Lisa?
yes.
I'm sorry.
Tax bills went out last week?
Yes, they were mailed out on Wednesday.
How are the phones been?
It's been, oh, I should.
The phones haven't been too bad. We had a lot of people come and visit us today, though.
With money?
Mhm.
Complaints?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Very good.
Okay, so you're up then, Mike?
Yes, so we're still looking for those members on historic preservation. I thought I had somebody interested, but I think to end up having maybe a work conflict, so I'm still looking for a couple people on there. Village Hall will be closed on Monday the 25th, 26th, and then the 1st, so Jerry will not have meetings on those days. Jerry.
Thank you. I thought you were gonna make me wonder.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't do that. So the first board meeting is January 8th, And January 9th we're having a public forum on the Perry Parkway connection. Jeff prepared a press release that's in the packet. That's going to be held in this room?
Yeah, it actually be held in the community room.
Community room, okay.
And it's going to be exciting, I think, to be able to see that kicked off. Hopefully, we get some people to come out and take a look at things, and just also see how it will impact not only next summer. Hopefully, we won't have any traffic impacts, but there will be some, people getting down to the brush pile. We're going to have to relocate that, and those are things that we'll be discussing in our meeting.
And actually, what I just made a note, we'll notice it in case of, board members want to show up for it. Yeah.
Yep.
Then, we're planning on having, this works with your schedule, a Personnel Committee and Public Works on January 15th. Committee meetings, back to back, okay? And then the 22nd would be the second board meeting of January. And the 29th, we're going to have the discussion about the lift station. The library, we were supposed to do that last week in the library. We needed to focus on the library. So now Jason and Mike Stanley will be here to talk about the lift station analysis on the 29th, so.
Okay.
So basically, after the first of the year, just come here every Monday night, you'll be fine, you'll be in good shape.
For the rest of our lives.
Yes, exactly.
For the rest of the year.
Just like we have all year.
Yeah.
But you get a couple weeks off, Jerry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sign that we're a vibrant community, right? Look at it that way. If we didn't have anything to do, that'd be bad.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's it for report.
Okay, anything else from staff at this time? Okay, item A, communication and miscellaneous business. Item A, review of South Main Street parking lot and Jefferson Crossing project, including the October 26th South Main Street Drive Aisle Jefferson Street parking lot public forum. Discussion and possible action regarding utility underground in the Jefferson Crossing project. The recommended motion is to approve contracts with Alliant Energy, $72,438.56. Charter Communications, $57,710.21. And Frontier Communications, $36,951.32 for underground of the utilities along Jefferson Street and South Main Street public parking lot as part of the ongoing Jefferson Crossing project.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to walk through this pretty quickly, but I just want to catch everyone up on, so I have a memo dated December 15th, labeled as 8A. Just to give you an idea, as part of the project is the burying of the electrical lines, Charter TV cables and Frontier cables along Jefferson Street, as well as in the South Main Street parking lot. I think everyone can, if you've seen the building going up out there, it's a really nice looking building, and I think this is going to be a very smart decision to do this. The one drawback of any of this is we don't have a lot of crossings in the village, with a railroad track bisecting everything. So what we have going out Jefferson Street is a major electrical transmission line. We have 1,500 pairs of phone line and I call it high capacity fiber optic lines. So we couldn't probably pick a worse spot to to choose to underground that, but that's the way it is. So you're going to see some costs come through here, and they're expensive, but I think it's a good investment in our downtown. So then we're also burying some of those lines in the parking lot, going north and south to be able to get those out of the area back there. And then another kind of facet of this is the conversion of those underground services to these businesses and tenants that are on South Main. We're finding just this similar to what we had in the downtown project. I've been told from when we went through this, just making sure that the voltage that is being delivered is going to match with what is in the businesses, because there are, I'm not an electrical engineer, but there's 220 volt and then 240 volt and 208 volt and delta connections and Y connections and all those type of things. So we're just working to get that worked out. Then reconstruction, reconfiguration of the parking lot, the shared entrance, the stormwater collection system and treatment, the reconstruction of the dumpster corral. We want to talk about that all tonight if we want. The new parking lot lighting, and then I think this is also another important part, new downtown lighting with the removal of those large power lines and the poles. We're actually needing to mimic the lighting that's going on in the rest of the downtown. So a lot of the lights, other than the conversion of them to LEDs, they'll be the same type of base and fixtures. And that'll actually go on both sides of Jefferson to the railroad bridge. And then the last little tiny housekeeping item you've probably seen every winter I've been here so far, we've managed to have somebody hit the power pole or the light pole that's in front of the Quick Trip across from Hitching Post Park. So we are going to move that about 10 feet closer to the crosswalk, and then we're going to put about a 700-pound concrete planter box right there so that they'll really know that they hit it this next time. But that should protect that, and that's about a $10,000 deal. You'll be able to see kind of summary of anticipated costs of what we're planning for there. There was a discussion with some of the property owners to create a drive aisle through the parking lot and into the back of Ziggy's and then out on the shared easement area owned by UW Health. We had engineers look at that. We also had the public forum. We had pretty good attendance, I think, from individuals who were kind of party to that. At this time, the UW Health, they listened to people's desire, and there's just some concerns that they have as far as wayfinding for some of their patients, as well as some of the liability issues or people parking in their parking lots. So they just were not open to that option at this time. We do think there will be a time, if and when UW develops, that a drive-through aisle to additional parking and everything back there might be viable, but we're actually planning that as part of the parking layout and the dumpster layout, so that can be a reality if and when that occurs. Randy, following that meeting, Randy Glish went around the downtown area, and he just, I think one of the feelings that came out of the forum was we don't have enough parking. We don't have enough parking downtown. And Randy felt that, no, we've got quite a bit of parking. So, he created a list, and like I said, I haven't gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, and some of them are private parking lots and that type of thing, but, we have he totaled up about 686 parking spaces within the downtown area there. I think what it just tells us, we do have parking, you just can't park right in front of the restaurant you may be wanting to go to. But my wife and I went to Middleton this last week. We parked and walked a block or so, and it wasn't that bad at all. So we're going to continue to evaluate the parking lots. The other thing that we're going to be looking at that we foresee is bringing before you the idea of, and probably through the Public Safety Committee and Public Works Committee, is possible changing of the downtown parking restrictions, likely implementing a 4-hour parking time zone that would be enforceable, and that would hopefully encourage the parking, at the businesses right there to be more for customers and people down there using the businesses rather than staff, owners, and other people that might park a car there for days on end. So that's kind of something to be coming ahead. Construction's going to be busy. We're going to have a lot of things going on in the village, but the construction around this is going to be busy mostly into spring and early summer. We'll probably see a beehive of activity, if you will, probably, I'm guessing, April, May, and June. But who knows, if this weather continues like this, we will see the utilities start to go underground through the winter, especially if the weather continues to work for us here. Searle Electric is going through and doing the evaluations on all the South Main Street businesses, and the downtown parking lot and lighting project will again happen in the late spring, early summer. I say in the end, there's just a lot of facets on this project coming together. It's exciting to see we continue to have a really good working relationship with Lake Stone/Spanry Group. Their contractor's been very good to work with. Their project manager out there, Mike Montalto, has been very good to work with, and he's been very responsive if we've had any complaints, and they've just been minor, usually just access to dumpsters and stuff like that, and stuff that would make sense during the construction project. But I think they were saying mid-June, mid-July for move-in time, and I think they're pretty much on that schedule. So it's going to be an exciting time we're going to see a lot of things change early this next half to 3/4 of the year.
Thanks, Jeff.
And then The other memo is just kind of this is more of the request, including the items that we'll have to start cutting checks for the electrical underground work. You see for the Alliant Energy, Jefferson Street, you see those numbers there, and public parking lot. Charter Communications, the same. I think Charter kind of surprised us, but we didn't realize the size of the cable that was going out there. And the one bright spot in this is Frontier Communications is already underground in the back parking lot, so we don't have to do anything additional for that. But we are asking for approval of these contracts tonight, so we can start cutting them loose, get the signatures on the contracts, as well as be able to cut checks for Alliant to be able to get them moving ahead. Any questions?
How are these gonna be funded, Jeff?
They're being funded through the TIF.
17 and 18 borrowing, Jerry.
Borrowing,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Will the work take place in the street a little bit as well as in the parking lot?
Not in the new street. No, it'll all be actually behind the curb on the south side. So it'll be between the curb, where the poles are now. It's tight, but it's between the back of the curb and the face of the building, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you drive by there and look at it and see the new building now, it's not done with the poles. I think it's really nice that's not gonna be there.
Yeah.
To have a significant change in how that looks and dresses that up, so I think we can thank Trustee Carpenter for bringing that up and pushing for it, so
Absolutely.
thank you.
I did push that at the planning commission meeting.
You did, you did well. Other questions on that? So we have motion second to approve contracts to put the utilities underground along Jefferson Street and South Main Street public parking lot. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Item B, review of police department reports.
I'm not going to go through the reports as usual. If you have any questions, please let me know. I would like to say, and I'd like to tell our citizens to please, again, lock your cars, close your garage doors, lock your doors in your houses. We do still have, it seems like in the area, Madison, Fitchburg, Stoughton, Verona, we're having a rash of vehicle thefts because people are leaving their cars unlocked and the keys in the car. So I was talking to the interim chief in Fitchburg the other day, and he said they've had 60 car thefts there over the last few months and throughout the year. So I think we've only had, I want to say 3 in the last 3 months, but for us, that's a lot. So just remind folks to please lock up, take your valuables out of your cars if you can. Any questions on the reports? No?
No, thank you. It's very interesting information, though.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would encourage people that are watching to go to this agenda and take a look at this packet and see what the police deal with on a regular basis. It's, I know they're well respected, but I think this increases that even more so. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's a lot of tough stuff on there that they do.
Even the high school information is interesting. It's a
Yeah.
far cry from what I dealt with back in high school. It's-
Yeah, he remains busy and does a good job of
Yeah.
documenting what he does. So.
Yeah. So any questions on those reports, Charlie?
I was just saying, they didn't catch up with them.
You were supposed to keep quiet.
That's pretty good.
Anything else on the reports?
Yes, they did.
So we got item C, follow-up to police department's K-9 pancake breakfast, Chief?
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank the community for their generous turnout during this event. As you can see by the numbers, we had almost 1,000 people come through the fire department and support our K-9 pancake breakfast. So just outstanding turnout. So I couldn't be happier and more pleased with how the process went and with the community's support. So thank you.
Yeah. Speaks very well for the department, so
Yeah.
thank our officers and yourself, too.
You guys did a really nice event.
Yeah, thanks.
Item D, discussion and possible action ordering 2018 police squads. Recommend motion is to do that, so
So move.
Second?
thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
It's the easiest that's ever been.
Man, okay.
Well, it helps when they're in the budget.
They are in the budget, and I will say, even if I order them tomorrow, they won't be in service until May or June. It just takes a long time for that
Yeah.
process to happen, so.
Okay, item E, discussion and possible action, municipal deputization agreement. Recommended motion is to approve the village president signing the municipal deputization agreement.
So move.
Second?
Thank you.
Could someone just explain what this is? I
Yeah.
read it and still can't
I
figure
was
it
gonna
out.
ask that
Just
too.
give me like a two-sentence
I read it, but it didn't work, so
summary.
tell us.
I thought it was just me.
Okay.
No.
Brian, can you just explain really quickly what it is?
So what this is, I don't need it. The sheriff puts out an agreement that basically, they deputize all of our officers to go out and do limited functions in the county outside the village, so we can support them. Basically, it's kind of providing a little bit of liability on their part that, yes, we're going to make sure that they're doing the right things out there. So that's really all it is. I don't know that I've seen this since I've been here, so I'm not sure where it went. I didn't see it last year. And I actually had to go back and ask Rudy. I said, I don't remember signing this myself. But yeah, I don't know. if
I
they-
understand what he's doing, I understand
Yeah.
the point of it, but I don't remember seeing this before.
Yeah, I don't know if the board has seen it, but this is the first time I've seen it, so I wanted to present it to you guys to have a look at it. But again, it's just for our officers to be deputized, to be able to take enforcement action out in the county when needed.
Okay.
Oh, do you think we should sign it?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, yep.
Other questions?
So would an example of this be, like, when I see, city of Fitchburg squad cars on county highways?
Well, city of Fitchburg goes all the way down to here, so they're out in county highways
Well,
all
city-
over, so yeah.
City police on a county highway?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that kind
unless,
of an example of deputization?
yep, unless I like, for example, if I want the county to come in and help here, they can do that, but other agencies, I'd have to actually give them a mutual aid request to do that. We don't necessarily need that with this agreement. We can just go out there, and enforce if they need to for us to help out.
Other questions? So we have the motion and second to approve the village president signing the municipal deputization agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item F, discussion and possible action regarding the 2018 Employee Assistance Program Agreement. I recommend motion is to approve that in the amount of $2,200. Funding is in the 2018 budget, same as 2017.
So I make a motion to approve that.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
And I just want to thank Mike for bringing this forward. I think, the employee assistance program is a very important benefit to employees, and yet people don't always think about it until it's too late, so I
Yep.
appreciate your proactivity.
Thank you.
And it's been helpful here
It has been.
on different times in helping employees, so it's been a good thing. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, review of final 2017 master calendar.
I just have a comment that, I think it shows that we had a very busy year, and I think 18 will maybe even be busier, believe it or not. And I hope this sort of gives the board and residents some idea of what went on. This is not everything we've done, but I think there's some things that we do internally that not everyone knows, that the staff, for example, all the stuff things that Peggy and Lisa does, for example, and Rachel, that maybe we don't do on the agendas, but that
Yeah.
they have to do.
That's a busy place,
Exactly, yep.
and we appreciate it.
Yep. So now I'll
Comments on
prepare, I'm sorry, I'm going to prepare one for 18 then, have you look at the first quarter of the year.
Okay. Item A is discussion and possible action regarding hiring an intern as an 8-hour per week limited term employee at the senior center. Recommended motion is to approve hiring Keisha Furness as an 8-hour per week limited term employee at an hourly rate of $12 at the Oregon Area Senior Center, beginning as soon as possible and concluding when a new case manager is hired.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Rachel?
Keisha is a second-year human services student at Madison College. She's been our intern since August. She's learned a lot. We've had the case manager's position open since late June. The candidate we thought we had hired, we did not, and we're in the process of seeking applications again. So to try and just help shore up some of those hours, we thought Keisha now knows enough, she's learned enough as an intern to be really helpful to us, that she has an additional 8 hours a week she can spend, we can hire her for. That would just be a very limited term thing until we get a new case manager on board.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? So we have the motion and second to approve hiring Keisha Furness as an 8-hour limited term employee at the Oregon Area Senior Center. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item I, discussion and possible action about appointing new council on aging members. Recommend a motion to approve appointing Marcel Toma, who would represent the town of Rutland, and Chris Halverson as a community resource to the Council on Aging.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
The Council on Aging members have to be approved by the village board. Town of Rutland appointed Marcel Thoma back in early December. The executive board of the Council on Aging approved him, as well as Chris Halverson as a community resource person. This is kind of a pro forma thing for the village board to look at and approve.
Thank you. Questions or comments? So we have a motion second to appoint Marcel Thoma and Chris Halverson to the Council on Aging at the Senior Center. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item J, discussion and possible action, refer the village's burning regulations, Chapter 9.14, to January 15, 2018 Personnel Committee meeting for possible amendments to regulations. And the recommended motion is to refer that to the Personnel Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Just had a situation where a person was burning leaves, they'd gotten a permit, and the question was, why do we have that
Yeah.
ordinance, right? Is that
And we
kind of-
just want to look at the whole
Look at the whole thing.
picture, yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, discussion possible action regarding authorized hiring of account clerk 3 position at the 2017 hourly rate of $23. There's a note, the police background should be completed next week on the candidate. The village board could authorize the chair of personnel, public safety and protection, and village administrator to approve the hiring of the new account clerk 3, or schedule a special board meeting next week. That's for Mr. Bollig.
That's why, that's why I said maybe. That's why I said maybe.
What is it? I'm all confused.
So we need a motion.
So moved. For clarification.
Second.
Thank you. So do we want to have authorize the chair of personnel, public safety, and the village administrator to approve that, or schedule a special board meeting for Mr. Bollig? I'd say authorize them.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So discussion on this, comments?
We did it last time, Jeannie and I, and unfortunately the candidate didn't hoping to work out. Hopefully this candidate works out, and, yeah. It went, the board gave us approval, and then,
Yeah.
yep. It
How
went
does
pretty
the account clerk numbers run? Is an entry-level account clerk a 1, or is it like a 5? 1. So it goes up?
Yeah, yeah.
Other questions? So we have the motion second to authorize hiring of account clerk 3 position. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Item L, discussion, possible action, resolution number 17-41, 2018 salary schedule effective 12/31/17 for non-represented employees. Recommended motion is to adopt resolution number 17-41.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item M, discussion and possible action regarding village auditor's proposal for conducting 2017 audit. Recommended motion, approve proposal as presented for conducting that audit in 2017.
I'll make that motion for discussion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say, Lisa?
It's the quote that they have in here is exactly what they had when we went out with the RFP last year.
Okay. And the fee is budgeted?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? So we have motion second to approve the proposal as presented for conducting the 2017 audit. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, report of committees. There are none listed. Item 10, minutes not requiring action. They're in our packet. Oregon Area Fire EMS District Commission, November 2nd, minutes and information. 11, unfinished business. There is none. Item 12, new business. There is none. 13 is future agenda items that will be coming our way. Item 14 is a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, folks.